Hi, it's Carly McAvoy. I'm looking at solving quadratic equations. The first method I'm looking at is the square root property. Also, I want to call it the plus minus property because people tend to forget the negative square root and then they get one answer instead of two. If you have x squared equals k, then you can take the square root of both sides and get x equals plus or minus the square root of k. Notice the plus and the minus here is how we're going to get two solutions, which we would expect for a second power equation. All right, let's look at some of these problems. 9y squared equals 25. Well, first I want to get the y squared by itself, so I divide both sides by 9, and I get 25 ninths. And then I take the square root of both sides. That gives me y equals plus or minus square root of 5/3. So I get two solutions. I don't always get the plus and the minus of the same number, as we'll see, but in this case I do. In this one I'm going to first get the p squared by itself. By moving the 21 to the other side, you should see that that's going to be now negative 121. And then I'm going to divide everything by 36. And that gives me p squared is negative 121 over 36. And now I'm going to take the square root. But what happens when I have a negative? Well, that's actually like negative 121 is the same as the square root of negative 1 times 121, which is where the I comes in. So I get p equals plus or minus. This is square root of 121 is 11. Square root of 36 is 6, but I have an I because it's a negative, so I have plus and minus 11/6 I. Okay, what about if we have a binomial squared? Same thing. As long as I have something to the second power, I can take the square root of both sides. When I do that, I get 5x minus 1, but remember, I get plus or minus over here, so I get 7. And I get negative 7. There's my two potential answers. I have to solve both of these. I get 5x equals 8, or x equals 8/5. And down here I get 5x equals negative 6, or x equals negative 6/5. Notice that I had plus or minus 5/3 up here. Down here I have just two different numbers, two different answers. So we have to solve it out. We can't just say, oh, I got 5/3, so the other answer is going to be negative 5/3. I have to work through and see if that's true. Here I have the square root of x minus 5 equals, well, the square root of 15 is a decimal, and I don't want to write a decimal, so I'm going to say it equals the square root of 15, and it equals the negative square root of 15. I know I'm almost off the paper here. Let me come back. So that's going to be adding 5 to both sides is going to be 5 plus the square root of 15, and over here it's 5 minus the square root of 15. Now you could write those separately, or we could say it's 5 plus or minus the square root of 15. Those are two different answers because one time I'm going to add and the other time I'm going to subtract, and definitely get two different answers. The last one I'm going to do is this one with a negative because I want you to see again negative square roots. I'm going to take the square root of both sides and get x plus 3 equals plus or minus, the square root of 100 is 10, but because I have the negative under there, I have 10i. So x equals negative 3 plus or minus 10i. I'm just moving that 3 to the other side. Here I wrote positive and then negative. Here I just wrote it one time, but the final answer is going to be the same. I could write this as negative 3 plus 10i comma negative 3 minus 10i if I needed to separate them out. All right, have a fantastic day, and we'll see you next time.